As the official healthcare provider of Minnesota United, Allina Health is focused on keeping our loons in top condition. And with expertise in orthopedics, sports medicine, heart care, and more, Allina has the team to keep your family in the game too. The experts at Allina Health take the time to get to know you as a whole person, helping you achieve wellness for your mind, body, and spirit. It's an altogether better kind of healthcare. Learn more at allinahealth.org. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Sound of the Loons. It is officially 2024. It is January 11th. I cannot believe I haven't had to write 2024 on anything because nobody writes checks anymore. But I remember the first time I ever did that for the next year. It took me a minute. So this is technically officially our first episode of the new year, brought to you by Allina Health. I better get that in there. I forget that all the time. And I know Wil Trapp is good at remembering the important people like sponsors. So I get to be joined by the veteran midfielder, Wil Trapp, who is back with Minnesota United for yet another season. Hello, Wil. Welcome. And I see you have your blinds shut. That just means the sun is out.
Yeah, the sun is out, and I'm trying to have my Zoom etiquette just kind of put together here a little bit. But Happy New Year. Thanks for having me, Kyndra.
So, hey, I want to talk to you first just a little bit about your off season. Did it feel long to you as a player? And then secondly, just the family life, as much or as little as you would like to get into, what you guys have going on and how you spend your free time when you get to actually relax with the family a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the off season, it's one of those times where you get to slow down, especially, we're fortunate that we have the holidays during our off season. So family time, whether that's guys traveling back home, for us, a little bit of travel, and just experiencing kind of the magic of Christmas and New Year's was really fun for our family. But it is long. I mean, it's obviously you don't make the playoffs and it's long. So for me, I try to take a little bit of time, but not too much, because I don't like to stop, because I don't like
you don't like to ramp back up.
Oh man, it's the worst. It's the worst to have to when you stop the battery, then it takes longer to get it back going. So I took probably a week and then have been training it. I've actually been fortunate. I've been working with a lot of the young boys on the team, 2 or 3 of them, Devin Paddleford, Patrick Way, and Caden Clark, who will be a new exciting signing for us this season. And been with them almost every day for the past 9 weeks, 10 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So,
oh my gosh.
So it's been really fun, because I think every time I've done situations like that in the off season where you work with guys on your team, you start to build just connections, right? And that's what's really important is, hey, I know how much you put in, you know how much I put in, and you can start to pull that out of each other as you go into preseason.
When you look at what the offseason entails, you signed a new contract. Can you give us a little insight into what that in-between time was like? Were you always in discussions? Did you always want to return? And we're going to, dive a little bit into the fact that there isn't a current head coach, but the search is on clearly. But just, sort of the unknown of that and coming back as a leader on this team.
Yeah, look, Kyndra, it's no easy way to say that professional sports and the uncertainty of those moments is certainly challenging, right? And I do also understand it's a huge blessing to be able to do what we do. So there is just the element of, hey, what's next? And when you're kind of in that in-between period and conversations start, and then there's a quiet time, and then you're just like, what's happening? People are asking what's happening, and you end up answering the same questions over and over with, we're just waiting to see. It can be frustrating, but I think for myself and for the family, we were very much just like, hey, whatever happens, we're willing to move along with it. So don't, quote unquote, fight the river so much, and just kind of lean into it, focus on training, spending time with these guys, spend time with the family, and enjoy it, really, because it's really easy to get your mind wrapped up in it. So it was it was a challenge in moments. It was celebration in other moments. It's just what the journey is.
Would you have had that same perspective and that same feeling, 10 years ago in your career? Can you bring some of that wisdom to other players, younger players, when you're dealing with contract things, new coaching changes, which coaching changes happen all the time, all over the place. That's nothing
Hmm.
new in professional sports and college sports for that matter. Would you have had this same sort of wisdom about it, about handling it?
No, because you can't walk through those things until you've done them before, right? And I think you can say it to someone, but until they've have the lived experience, it's not real to them. They're just words. So for me, 10 years ago, I probably would have catastrophized and worried and panicked and done all those things. But I wouldn't have had a family, so it's a little bit easier, right? There is that other side to the coin of the flexibility is different, and but the challenges are different. It's just the stage of life that you're in. But yeah, look, change is a constant, and I think we're in an interesting position as a club where there's excitement and there is change coming. What that looks like, we're still kind of authoring that ourselves, and with Khalid coming in, we'll be able to author that even more clearly. But yeah, it's not something 10 years ago I would have known how to handle quite as well.
Your wife would have been a little bit more on a task to walk you off the ledge or calm you down. But yes, I do think when you
Yeah.
have a family, even just not having a spouse but having kids, it totally changes the mindset around what you're doing, every choice you make when you're trying to figure out, are we moving, are we staying, what do we have going on here? Kids are in school, all that stuff.
Well, I mean, every person listening that has a job and has a family it looks at the same way. Like they're whether you're a fan of the team or you're whatever, it's the reality of this decision isn't just about me anymore. So
Yep, exactly. Hey, what made you want to stay? What made you want to come back and be a part of this club, a part of Minnesota United now that you've been, because you originally signed in 2021?
yeah, I think Kyndra, if I look at the way the season ended last year and some conversations that I had with just I mean, you can't get season tickets because we sell out the stadium. Like it's amazing. The potential of the club is so high, and I hope people realize that because um, what this market can bring, what this city cares about in terms of commuting and the sport of soccer is massive. And I think for me, really buying into and wanting to contribute to the success of the club, beyond just, hey, that's awesome that we have a cool stadium and we reach out in the community, but to start to build something, I think is what really energized me, and understanding that so many parts of it, the scaffoldings, quote unquote, the bones of it are very solid. And it's just now, hey, how do we start to move into the next iteration of what this club can become?
When you look at how 2023 ended, because I haven't really gotten a chance to talk to you or
Mm,
really any of the players since that all wrapped up, because there was just so many things going on with the club and you're kind of on to the next thing. When you look at how 2023 ended and then you're reflecting, but also more importantly, looking forward, what do you think are the biggest maybe learning things? Now you took a deep breath, you stepped away from the season, you can look back. What did you learn from 2023 about yourself and about the team? And then what do you
mhm.
think is the most positive going forward into 2024?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think it's about realizing and recapturing joy in the game.
Mm.
Um, because I think when you go through turbulent times culturally within the group and things are this way and that way, you start to pull yourself away from what we do and why we do it. And I think if anyone's listening that has kids that play soccer, it's like just watch them, right? Like they
Yeah.
love it because they love it. And fortunately, like we just get to do this at a higher level, but it's reconnecting to that. So I've realize like, oh man, like how much joy was I losing,
Mm.
kind of pulling in other directions or making it overly tense on myself or whatever it may be. And reconnecting to the more childlike state of just like, hey man, go enjoy yourself, bring excitement and fun for the fans, and try to win every game. And I think doing that in community with the group is something that we all can take forward into this season, because ultimately the group is a solid one. I really do like our group, but it's now just taking the ownership and the responsibility of every day. What's our culture look like? What are we building towards? What's our big overarching vision? And I think a guy like Khalid coming in who is very determined and very um, committed to what he wants to be and what his vision is immensely important for this group, because the guidance and knowing, hey, we're all rowing this boat that direction is how and why good teams are successful.
Well, and to that point, I mean, is that part of just a huge piece of the puzzle? Just all being on the same page and going in the same direction. And then it's to be determined, right? Whether that's the right direction or wrong direction. And maybe those aren't the good words, right and wrong maybe aren't, but like the challenging, you don't know until like when you get into something, you know what I'm saying? Like,
sure,
you're not going to know, but at least you all have this same clear path, same clear philosophy. Once he gets there, once a head coach is established, and you can sort of all do this thing together.
Yeah, I think we always want to be knowing what the other person's doing and why we're doing it. As with anything as a family or a team, it's like, hey, here's what we are, and here's how things are done here, right? This is what it means to be a Trapp, an example. Like, this is what I want my boys to be like, right? Here's how we behave. Here's how you show up to things, right? And the same thing goes in an organization or a company or a team. And I think that's the beautiful thing we get to build now, is like, do those things, do those cultural or values, are they winning ones or are they not? And here's how we can choose them and start to make them a part of our fabric. And hopefully that's the aim that you can do. And preseason's the perfect time for that, right? Because we're with each other the most time we're going to be with each other, and you're having those conversations, and there aren't games every 2 days. It's very much about building the culture, and I'm excited for that.
And then when you look at that, because you have to pivot sometimes too, right? I mean, not everything is set in stone. And doing the Apple MLS games this last year, I'm getting to talk to every different coach, right? So then you're getting all sorts of different information, philosophy, styles, and each one works differently for each club. And sometimes it pivots within a game, within a season, talking to Wilfred Nancy. I mean, how many guys he had playing in different positions, right? And they end up winning MLS Cup. Or a guy like Pat Noonan, and just adapting and moving. So even though someone comes in with a thought, a style, a philosophy, and you're all moving and knowing in the right direction, at the end of the day, the goal is to win. And so pivoting at times is okay too. Like, do you feel like this is a group that can do that, or remains to be seen because you've got some new guys coming in? How do you feel about the core of this group, to kind of go forward and grasp onto what's being I don't want to say sold to you, because that's negative, but you know what I'm saying? Like, a new
what's being presented.
Yeah, exactly. Like, to grasp that, to buy into it, to run with it. How important is that?
Look, I think, first of all, oftentimes the most powerful person in the room is the most adaptable. And understanding that you can't just like blindly go forward thinking that you have it all figured out, because none of us do. And that takes communication with each other. That takes humility. That takes communication. I think from our group, there is an underlying hunger that maybe it's always been there, but maybe not always pulled out. Right. Yeah. And we do have leaders in the group. We do have people that are committed to wanting to be the best they can be. We do have players that want to win. And I love that about the group. It's now just, hey, how do we fit that together? And pivot as we see, and we need to make changes, right? As it's, hey, this isn't working right now. Let's not just blindly walk down the cul-de-sac, let's find the way out so we don't have to drive the extra mile and a half, right? We don't need to keep going if it's not working. But I've experienced it when you don't have buy-in, at least somewhat from the beginning, and guys are already resistant. That's where fractures happen from the beginning. And that's something where I really want people to come in, all of us to come in open-minded of like, hey, it's a project, right? Cam is the head coach right now. That obviously wasn't the design, but that's the reality. So like, let's make this something that is a great experience for Cam and vice versa. I know he's going to put his best foot forward as well. So going into it with that level of, I guess, open-mindedness, humility, and desire to make the best out of whatever comes is super important.
Well, and I've always seen you, every training session I ever went to, and just watching you in games and whatnot, there's this level of intensity and competitiveness, but also in the way you communicate it, it's like a constructive positivity and criticism, like knowing how to how each player, how each teammate maybe needs to take in certain information, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because not every player takes it in the same way, reacts the same way, responds the same way, whatever. So as a leader of this team, and you said there's a good core group of you, and it's okay if some of the younger guys step up and are leaders too. Is that draining or exhausting in having to uplift
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and you know what I'm saying? Like
No,
whether
no,
that was
absolutely.
last year or this year or your whole career. I mean, think about it, 12 years
Yeah.
in this. Like
Yeah.
how does that wear on you? And not necessarily not trying to make it be like a negative, but it's a challenge.
No, no, I think it's a challenge if you're doing it in the wrong medium. Um, so here's an interesting, like kind of allegory I heard recently. It was like, if we're going to a school and it's a school for animals. So Kyndra you're a duck and I'm a rabbit, right?
Mhm.
But like swimming is something we need to get good at, and running and jumping and flying, right? Like you're a duck. So like you're pretty good at swimming. But if I
Mhm.
want to make you run, like I
Mhm.
want to wear your feet out. And now you're going to be worse at swimming and you're going to be maybe worse at flying because we want to make you good at running. But you're never really going to be that good at running.
Mhm.
So what I found is it becomes exhausting when you're not doing it based on how you're designed,
Mhm.
right? So like think about Boxy's not the most vocal person, but he
Mhm.
leads by example. If
Mhm.
Boxy started now having little chit chats with every person, he'd be like, well, he's draining his battery for something that's not his design, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so I think for me, it's like, what am I designed? How am I designed to lead or just encourage people? Like, just do that. And
Mhm.
someone will fill in the gap to the other one, right? And
Yeah.
that's where you start to, like you said, then young guys don't sit there and say, oh, it just has to be the old guys. Because like
Mhm.
Devin Palford might be great at one of these aspects. Go
Mhm.
do it, buddy. No problem.
Mhm.
Go do
Mhm.
it. DJ, you're great at that. Hassani, you're great at that.
Yeah.
Dane, you're great at that. Go do that. So you
Mhm.
actually create space for people to also realize what they're good at and lead from that perspective. So I think, yes, it was exhausting because I was doing more than what I'm actually good at.
MNUFC's March 2nd home opener against the Crew will be here before you know it, and the excitement only ramps up from there. 2024 is packed with big matchups, including showdowns with LAFC, Seattle, Cincinnati, and more of MLS's finest. Between the first 5 and Flex 5 ticket packages, there's never been a better way to see the Loons games you are most excited about. Learn more about these awesome deals at mnufc.com/tickets. Got it. That's perfect. I don't know where did you hear that at your kid's school or something? Because that sounds great. I like that.
Yeah, it was a Bible study. Yeah, it was
Love
a
it.
Bible study. It was fascinating. Yeah.
Love it. I love it. And sometimes it's like things are simplified and it's like, duh, like
Yeah.
we all try
Oh,
to overcomplicate things.
yeah.
So I kind of feel like that's a great way to go into 2024 in the fact that not just with you guys as players, but even, when Khaled comes in, when the new head coach is hired, when everybody takes on those sort of roles and is integrated, like I just feel like that's a great positive way to go into 2024 and focus on what you all can be and are focusing on achieving. Does that make sense? Rather than because
Mhm.
every question you guys get, right, for the next 2 months is probably going to be about and geared towards a negative, right? Just
Yeah,
because of the way, I mean, that's the way we media people work, right?
of course.
So that's just like a perfect way to be positive about it. And that's not spinning it. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, look, I mean, we are spinning it.
Well, you know
We're
what I
always
mean?
spinning.
Like,
We're always spinning things in our brain. Like, oh, I can take the negative, or I can say,
sure.
well, there's also a hope here. Let me just grab onto that and go forward with
Yep.
that. So I think, yes, you're right in the sense of how are we going to step forward? Well, not only do you want to step forward being the person you're designed to be, but you're also going to experience the most excitement and joy and fun by being that person. So
Mm-hmm.
like if every day you have to show up as an actor because you need to fit some role, like, dude, you're not going to be great at what you do. And I think that's an amazing lesson for a kid that's just coming in right out of college. And it's an amazing lesson for guys more entrenched in their careers that are older. It's like, hey, all of us are still playing a game and we get to do it together. And we get to, at the end of the season, try to be winning a trophy. And I think the best way we can do that is take what we're best at, our strengths, and bring them together. And that doesn't mean your strength better than my strength. There will be tension in that, but it's having good managers and people that can see how to fit the pieces together and not us worrying so much about that all the time.
Well, and then when you look at 2024 and what this league has become, I mean, you've been in it a long time. Like, are you is it almost your birthday? Did I read that? January 15th? It's coming up.
Yeah,
here?
I got four sleeps, according to my son.
Four sleeps until you're officially over 30, right?
Yeah.
Last year was the big 3-0. So when you look at 2024 and what this team can accomplish and what this league looks like now, what still excites you at this point in your career?
Oh my gosh. Well, the league it's crazy. I mean, you look at the players coming in, the players going out. I'm reading on the transfer tracker, guys going, whether they're going to big clubs in Brazil or they're going to like Europe, or European players coming in. It's just like, it's becoming so much more. We're like, one of those signings every 2 years would have been like the biggest thing. And now it's every offseason you got, I don't know, over a handful, right? And more so. And that's something that I think you're starting to see the league is gaining momentum. And the quality's going up. I mean, you watch the final, it was an amazing game, Columbus and LAFC. And what I think is brilliant is like, Columbus that's not a huge market. That's not a team that like spent a ton of money on like superstars, but they had a clear identity and they had the right culture and amazing players that put it all together. So I think the parity amongst the league is still there, which has always been a romantic / frustrating part of the league. But you can't just buy and win, and you can't just moneyball and win. So I think that healthy and beautiful tension of our league is still alive and well. But the needle now has gone up because the quality's gone up of the baseline player in the league.
So you're not just crowning Miami league champions for 2024.
I mean, you can't, because I mean, they could come play us at some point and it could be 30 degrees and then we go down there and it could be 80, right? Like no other league in the world is like that. Right.
Right.
So the constraints and just the uniqueness of the league is always going to be a part of it. But yeah, of course, they're always going to be favorites just because of the quality of player they have. But that doesn't mean anything when the season gets going.
Exactly. I know. That's why I was like, everyone's talking. I mean, even since Messi came, but all these other additions. But I just feel like the quality of the league across the board is that is the nature of the beast, is the manufactured parity and the way the rosters and the salaries are constructed. Like there's a purpose behind it. It doesn't mean that, that never can change, because when those rules were created, some of the roster rules was a long time ago and you're trying to get this to really take off. But now it's just created this level of excitement for us as fans and you guys as players. I would assume it's the same way. Like, who wants to win 15-0 or lose 15-0? Everybody wants to play in a good game. That's what I tell my daughter. She like smoked the team the other day, like 10-1, and then she lost like 20-1. I'm like, well, neither of those was fun.
Exactly.
That's not what you want. You want those like grinded out, tough, competitive games where you're playing against the best of the best that's coming here to this league and being in it.
Yeah. And I think we all, whether you're playing in the game or you're watching the game, you want the moments of brilliance where the game is hanging in the balance. That's like why we love the sport. And when it's a rout, like, yeah, that's exciting. Great goals are exciting and blowout wins are exciting. But like, I think for the educated / the fans that are even learning more and more about the levels of the game, they're like, oh, wow, like this play right here is what, like, Evanson playing this ball between the lines was like, oh my gosh, that unlocked the whole game. And then the final was theirs pretty much. Right. So it's fun to see that the quality is higher, but that those tension points of why we love the game are still alive and well.
Well, and to that point, this is just totally sort of off topic, but you just mentioned that ball that like unlocked it. As a midfielder and a deeper lying midfielder, like, don't you think we should count secondary assists?
Yeah, I mean, this pass was crazy. It was crazy.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's always the credit's always given to the assist that goes directly to the goal. And I feel like oftentimes it's the secondary. It's like hockey. We should have
Yeah.
Hockey, a secondary assist. It could come from a center back. It could come from a goalkeeper. It could come from an outside back. I feel like there should be more credit given to that pass.
Yeah, I also think like you could watch a Guardiola video and he's talking like the statistics element. Like good managers know like, oh, I know that my center back played the pass that really opened it up. It doesn't show up on the score sheet, but I don't care. He's still going to play for me next game, right? We
Yeah,
still
that's
scored the
true.
goal. So it's like, what is it really for? You know?
Yeah.
And maybe, yeah,
It's for
it
a
shows up
graphic on a drop down that
for
I can
sure,
talk about.
for sure, for sure. But that's where, like, again, I think the nuance of the game is what makes it beautiful, and it's not just all the eye test and the feel, and it's not all just statistics. It's a blend.
So when everybody gets back in, when do you guys officially report? Like next week or the week after? Oh my gosh.
Tomorrow, so this is like
Stop
this
it.
is live, right? So tomorrow we all
Yes.
have to be in market, and then physicals are this weekend, and then Monday's training day number one.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. I mean, I
I
knew it was
know.
in January. Like people always say, like, oh my gosh, you have like 2 months off. And I'm like, yeah, but it goes by so fast. Like with
Yeah.
the holidays in there, like it feels like you guys are right
Yeah.
back in it. And I know you said
Uh,
a lot of guys are in market, but how does that feel? With those young guys that you've been training with, what have you been most impressed about? You don't have to like name a specific
yeah.
individual, but
Yeah, I think it's just, I mean, some of these workouts have been at like 7 a.m. So I think the dedication has been awesome. Like the dedication to just keep coming and like even the day after Christmas or the day after New Year, like just showing up. That's half the battle, I think,
yeah,
especially in the off season, is like just showing up to do the work. And you start to build that habit and that routine. And that's what I've been really impressed with. It's funny. I was talking, we were watching the college football playoff games
hmm
and like Ohio, they weren't in the playoffs, but Ohio State had their game and Theo's like de facto Ohio State fan.
yeah,
He
yeah,
doesn't really know anything, but he likes
yeah.
Ohio State. And they lost. And he's like, so when did they play again? And I'm like, well, like August, buddy, like in like 8 months. And he was like 8 months. So then I look at my wife and I'm like, wow, imagine if our off season was 8 months long. Like, could you imagine? Like, obviously they have the intensity of like a NFL or a college season is
Mm,
crazy, but
mm,
like that amount of time off would be wild. Like we
right?
look at 2 months and like some of these other leagues, they're like, you guys only get like a month or 2 months.
Yeah.
Columbus or
Mhm.
LA, like they have a
Yeah.
month and it's right
Mhm.
back into it.
Mhm.
Um, so it is funny, like how do you structure that time? Because it's a long time, even 2 months is a long time, but it goes quickly, especially with the holidays and travel. So you got to be strategic and smart about how you plan that out. And I've been impressed with how these young guys have like taken to it and really committed themselves.
And then last but not least, just on a personal level, you talked about finding joy again in the game. You talked about what still excites you about, playing this game at this point in your career and having been, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's still a grind. I know you're very fortunate. We talk about how fortunate to be able to do what you do, but it's still a grind at the end of the day. Like, how do you stay I mean, because availability is like one of the most
Yeah.
important things, just
Yeah.
being available. I mean, and we just saw Ozzy Alonso retire, who was like
Mm.
legendary in availability, and not until this
Yeah.
past like year or so with the
Yeah.
ACL. But like, how do you stay in that spot? When and how did you learn to really take care of yourself as a professional?
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to the question you talked about, like 10 years ago, would you have known? Right. And when you're 20, like your body doesn't feel so bad. So you're just kind of like, yeah, it's all good, you know? Whereas you get older and like just miles accumulate and you have to start finding ways to just feel better to train, feel better to play. And those just become similarly like the off season, they become a fabric and a routine that's just who you are now. And I don't know any professional, especially any professional that you or I admire in any sport, as they get older, like that is so important, if not more important than anything, into why they've been able to keep going. You look at Chiellini playing till 39, you look at LeBron, you look at Brady, any of these guys, like
Mhm.
they take that part so seriously because they know that that's the only way they get on the field. So I've always seen that as, hey, it's just a part of what you want to do. If you want to play, you have to do this, or you get to do this rather. So it's just it's a mentality of part of my job is this, plain and simple.
Awesome. And then I lied. I have one more. I just want you to like sort of if you had to like send a message, we just talked about the amazing fan base and community here in Minnesota and what soccer is like in this state, which some people, if they've never been and they don't know, we all know because we've been in it now. But what would you say to those that are, you know, waiting for the 2024 season, whether you're a season ticket holder and you've had them forever or you're not? Like, what would you say when they're looking upon 2024 and the expectations that, you know, they can have and you have for yourself in this club going in?
Yeah, I think it's natural and it's normal to be skeptical. I mean, I don't think in any stretch of the imagination has this been a very normal offseason for the club. It hasn't. So I understand that there's skepticism coming into this season. I think we as players are also figuring out what that looks like for ourselves and as a team. So the only thing we can do if we care about the city and about the club is to rally behind one another, to link arm in arm and say, you know what, like, hey, we're gonna make lemonade out of this, whatever. And that sounds kind of chintzy, but I also realize that, like, dude, a lot of those, like we said with my kid, it's like some of the basic stuff is really all you need to hear. And ultimately, when we show up on March 2nd to play Columbus, we hope that the stadium's full, and we're going to give everything we can to win as many games as we possibly can. So beyond that, it's a gratefulness and a thank you to them, because they're the reason why we love playing in front of people. They're the reason why as a 3-year-old, got to go watch Columbus Crew play, and now I get to do it as my job. So thank you to them. We're grateful, but more than anything, let's do it together.
Awesome. Thank you, Will. I appreciate it. Happy early birthday. And I look forward to hearing what you guys have going on. Enjoy that beep test next week if you have it. And I'll look onto Twitter or X for the results.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Thanks, Will. Appreciate it.
Yeah. See you.
All right, everybody. Tune in next week for another episode of Sound of the Loons. Happy New Year. And here's to a fantastic 2024.